everybody, and welcome to the Row by Row Garden Show. We're coming at you live from Hoss Tools headquarters here in Norman Park, Georgia. I'm Travis.
And I'm Greg.
And as always, we're excited to have you with us tonight. We've got a really good show planned. Going to get into some talking about this back to Eden thing, which is
a gardening myth.
Well, a little bit of a gardening myth, yeah. Something that kind of troubles me from time to time. And then we're going to have our show and tell, and then we're going to answer a question at the end of the show. If you have any questions, put those in the comments. For the person whose question we answer at the end of this show, we're going to give them this nice little seed saving book, and we'll talk about a crop that we're going to save some seeds from here in a minute. So, have any questions, put those in there, and we answer your question on the show. We'll always send you something nice. All right. So we've got a few things going on around here. We got the expo coming up in 2 weeks.
Yep, wide open on it. Got everything planted, looking good. So kind of nervous, always a little stressful here at the last minute, making sure everything does okay. But we got everything looking good at the moment, and we're kind of excited about it.
We still on plan A and B. We haven't had to go to C and D yet.
Not yet, but everything can change. One good downpour rain or a little storm come in, it can change things. So.
And if you're close to us and you can make it out, come see us. It won't be next week, but the next
16th, 17th, and 18th, which is always on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I believe the gates open at 8:30 in the morning, and from 5:30 in the afternoon. I think on Thursday they may close at 4. Yeah, get by there and see us. There's a lot going on there. We got a great exhibit. We got some good people that's going to be in the building with us. It's going to have booths there, so you'll definitely find something for you out there somewhere. There's a huge family living tents. Got all kind of things going on in there, so.
And we'll have all of our products there for purchase, or you want to touch something, use it, test it out. You can do all that. And you can go to sunbeltexpo.com and see more information there. And you can even purchase your tickets in advance there.
Yeah, and one more thing. If you're interested in bees whatsoever, Rossman Bees always has their exhibit right out in front of where our garden is at. And they put on a great exhibit. They bring a lot of products out there. And it's kind of a unique thing because they do bring so much bee products out there, and they got experts on hand that can answer your questions. They sell packaged bees and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to find out more about bees, pollinating in your garden or for honey, whatever, they're a great group of people, and they're right outside of our garden. So.
And if you come to see us, we're right inside Gate 3.
Gate 3. Look up there, right inside Gate 3, look up there at the sign and see the Hoss Garden. You see Hoss Sustainable Living Center, but the building right beside of us is called the Georgia Metals Building. That's the building we'll actually be in. So if you get to the Georgia Metals Building, you're going to find us.
Big red barn there. You'll see us there with the garden right beside it. And we might even do the Row by Row show out there next week.
We may.
All right. And what, besides the expo garden, how's Greg's garden doing?
Well, I planted, ain't had the time to spend it there like I'd like to, but I did plant me some pumpkins here a while back, and I love to grow pumpkins. Well, we know here in South Georgia we have a terrible time growing pumpkins. So what I growed this year was one I've growed in the past, which is the Seminole pumpkin. Now, y'all folks up north, don't make fun of my pumpkins. This is the best we can do here in South Georgia. But this is the Seminole pumpkin. We've talked about it a lot before. We had one here we cut open right there. And we got a bunch of these right here. They are probably the most virus and insect resistant pumpkin I know of. And we grew them. They did well this year. I did have some mildew in there, but they did turn out and make pretty good bunch of pumpkins. Now they're small. You can see they're kind of what we call a personal size. These things originated or was found down in Florida. The Indians used to grow this pumpkin right here. It's a very hardy pumpkin, and it's probably, as far as an eating pumpkin, that's what we have to settle with here in South Georgia. Seeds are hard to come by.
Seeds are hard to come by. And I don't really consider settling because these right here are really good to eat. There's a lot more meat in there than you think there is. You can take 2 of these and have plenty enough for a couple pies. We even in the past, when my little boys were smaller, we use these for baby food, and babies love them. They make real good baby food. So
They store well too.
store well, keep them cool in the shade. They're gonna store well. Nice, pretty pumpkins. Them at the supermarkets and farmers market, women go crazy over them for decorations and stuff. But
We consider it an edible pumpkin, not ornamental myself, but I guess you could use it either way.
we're gonna save all our seeds this year, so we got a good little stock of seeds, and haven't tried the Seminole. If you can't grow this, you can't grow any pumpkin. These are probably the easiest to grow.
They are. And I know some people have a lot of problems with squash bugs. I have never had a problem with this thing here with squash bugs. It's just, I don't know if it's resistant to it or what, but pretty much you don't have to have any kind of pesticide application, whether it be a fungicide or insecticide, to grow these things. They are very tolerant. And even though they will get some mildew on them, they will survive and put on and bloom and make a good crop for you.
And they give a lot of ground cover. You don't have to worry about weeds as much.
You need some bees though. You got to have pollinators for
Right.
pumpkins. So
Right.
I got a beehive out there close to mine, so it's very important for cucurbits or anything like that to have good pollinators. Makes a huge difference.
And in my garden, I've got some Asian greens getting ready to cut. I probably need to cut them in the next day or two. Good little salad mix there. Corn, still spraying that spinosad every 4 to 5 days or so. I was reading up on the corn earworm because we got a 2-minute tip coming next week. If you ever notice when you have an ear of corn and it's got worms on it, there's only ever one worm. There's never two worms. There's only one worm.
I didn't know that.
So it turns out when those worms get older, they become cannibalistic.
Oh, they eat one another.
They eat one another in competition because they want to be the only worm on that ear of corn. So you don't ever see two worms. You only see one because they're cannibalistic. But one of them is plenty enough to do some damage.
Yeah, and some years we have more problems than we do others in the springtime. Of course, if you grow it in the fall, you're just going to have worm problems that you're going to have to address. In the springtime, for some reason or other, some years we won't have hardly any worms, and some years they're worse. If we have a worm, we just cut it out the top and go on. I always says if a worm won't eat it, you shouldn't eat it either. So it doesn't bother us a whole lot. However, I understand if you're growing it for market, you can't tolerate any of the worms. So I do get that.
Yeah, so we trying to be preventative with it and make sure we address the problem before it happens.
Right.
All right, and then let's get into our tool of the week, which we've been using. I've used a good bit here in the last week with planting some collards and cauliflower and broccoli. It's Chelea nitrate here. So we know we can inject that 20-20-20, but I've been, just to give them things right when I transplant them, give them a little kickstart. I've been going and side dressing along them cold
You
crops.
can inject that also.
You can inject this as well.
But it works great as a side dress. I actually did the same thing at the expo. I side dressed corn down there and all the greens a couple of weeks ago, and man, it made a huge difference. I put it about this far from the plant. You don't have to worry about getting it right up next to the plant, but I put it about this far there. We got a rain, it dissolved, it hit there, and man, they pumped up, went to town. So it's a great product to side dress with. They changed the analysis. This used to be a 1600. They've changed a little bit.
Now it's a 1502.
1502. The only reason that was done is on kind of some hazmat shipping, so it's basically the same product. It is a naturally derived product that's mined in Chile. Now, if you're older like I am, and you worked in tobacco or you grew tobacco back in the day, this is the same product that we used to see a lot of called Bulldog soda. If you hear any of the old timers talk about Bulldog soda, exact same product.
Yeah, and this is I'll venture to say, excuse me, as far as organic nitrogen sources go, this is your fastest, most
valuable.
effective.
Yep.
Way
Hands
to go,
down.
way to
Hands
go
down.
here. So
Some people say feather meal, and I've never used any feather meal, so I'm not familiar with this pretty fast, but I can promise you it's not as fast as what this is. So if you need to get some nitrogen to a nitrogen-loving plant, whether it be greens, corn, anything like that, quick, boom, this is what it goes.
nice little granules there, easy to apply. Put it in the cup, scatter around there, get you broccoli and everything, all that stuff kick-started good. All right, now let's get into the meat of the show. And today, I hope we don't, but we could ruffle a few feathers.
That's okay. Every now and then you need to ruffle a couple feathers.
So, this whole back to Eden gardening method, which is, you can see quite a bit of it online if you go through YouTube. You see some people doing it. Friends over at Deep South Homestead, they tried it for a couple of years and it just wasn't for them. And it's not for me. And we're going to talk about several reasons why. But it seems to be quite popular out there.
I believe the guy that originated this theory is from Alaska. Is it Alaska?
I don't
Somewhere
think it's
way
from
up there.
Alaska.
Anyhow, he put out several videos on this thing that kind of caught on and did well for him. However, we have some problems with it. And we're always having people ask us about it. The reason we want to talk about it today is because it always comes up in conversations, whether we're at a show, on a YouTube channel, our customer service, we're always getting people commenting about this back to Eden method. So we want to make a video today so we can address these issues so you can understand kind of where we're coming from on this.
That's right. So let's start out with a few of the claims that they make in the video and address those. One of the first claims, probably the biggest claim they make, their biggest reason to do this mulching. And before I get into that, we're talking about annuals here. We're talking about short-term garden crops. We're not talking about perennials.
Which is a different beast altogether.
Right, so we're just talking about your short-term garden crops. One of the biggest claims they make is it's going to keep you from having any weeds. It's going to reduce your weed pressure by putting mulch or wood chips out there. And that's a little misleading in my opinion. You can reduce some of your weed pressure in the garden, but you can't eliminate all weeds because you've got outside sources that are introducing weed seeds, like we always talk about: wind, water, and animals. You can't control those, and those are going to input weed seeds into your garden, and they're going to grow on top of that mulch or in that mulch. And the problem is, you got to pull them by hand. You can't run a wheel hoe or a hoe through wood chips or mulch.
Yeah, certain weed seeds do take sunlight to germinate, so it does help a little bit in that situation where you got weed seeds that have to have sunlight to germinate, and they won't germinate. But you're giving up a lot for that little bit of weed control.
Right. And if you're looking to, your goal is to create a stale seed bed instead of mulch, a much better option would be to use something like a tarp.
Or a cover crop.
Or a cover crop. That way you can take it off and then you've got your nice workable soil to deal with.
My preferred method on that right there would be cover crop.
Yeah.
Because you're adding organic matter back into your soil and you're shading out any of the weeds.
So definitely it doesn't drastically reduce weed pressure. I would say that frequent cultivation is a much more effective way to keep weeds down. And even Deep South, they found that they had much more weed pressure when they did the mulch. Mm-hmm. The other claim they make is that you won't need any water or fertilizer. Now you will need less water, but I would like to see somebody grow some corn in that mulch and not put any fertilizer to it, and I don't think it would turn out very well.
Well, different regions are different. Well, up north, maybe in Alaska, wherever they have more nitrates, naturally occurring nitrates in their soil than what we do down here in the south. We have a hard time holding any kind of nitrogen or basically any other nutrients here in the south because it gets so hot in our rainfall and our sandy type soils. But up in the north, they do have different type soils that hold nutrient levels better than what we do.
Right. So it's not going to, you may have to use less water. It's not going to reduce the amount of fertilizer you need completely.
No. These nitrogen-loving plants, tomatoes, these heavy feeders
Onions.
such as onions, tomatoes, peppers, and all those babies, you got corn, you got to supplement them.
That's right. One of the other claims they make is because it makes your soil biology so much better that it decreases your insect pressure. I think that's a little bit of confirmation bias because probably where people are doing this, they don't have a whole lot of insect pressure to start with.
Right.
In actuality, what it's going to do, excuse me, if you do it in a place down here where the insect pressure is high, it's going to provide, that mulch is going to provide a habitat for those larvae and eggs to overwinter, and probably make the problem worse.
Yep.
So no less insect pressure. The biggest one for me, and I had somebody comment on a video this morning saying that it requires less time than it would to do frequent cultivation, and in my opinion, that's just completely false, because it takes me 20 minutes a week to run through my garden with the wheel hoe. My garden's 5,000 square feet, and I'm planting something new probably every 30 to 50 days. Now, each time I plant, if there's mulch there, each time I replant, I got to remove that mulch. I got to clean that seed bed out, because unless you're planting by hand, that seeder, any seeder, is not going to work real good if you've got a bunch of wood chips and stuff there. So the time it would take to remove that mulch every time I plant and all that and putting new mulch on there repeatedly is going to be much more significant than that 20 minutes a week it takes me to weed the garden.
Well, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to grow our own food. We're trying to be successful at it, and we're trying to be productive. We're not necessarily worried about what the easiest method is. If you want something easy, go to the movie theater and get you a job selling popcorn. What we try and do is grow our own food and be the most productive at it. And to do that, you have to do it in a method that gives you the most bounty for what work you put into it. And that's definitely planting in rows like we do for vegetable, for annuals. Perennials, like we said earlier, is a different beast altogether. But these annuals require, after you get a rain, you got to go in there and cultivate. You got to aerate that soil so they can breathe, because they grow so fast. You got to supplement them with fertilizer. You got to have your pH adjusted accordingly. And when you start using some of these mulches in this system here, then you can get off of that. What we're trying to do with these annuals, we're trying to manipulate our environment to grow them. Tomatoes, peppers, corn, and watermelon, I can promise you, is not native plants. If you go out and look at a native area that the way it was 150 years ago, you don't see those plants growing out there. And the reason is that our environment was not conducive to growing those. So what we've had to do to grow these food crops is we've had to manipulate our environment. Now that may be kind of tough words, and you may not want to agree to this or believe it, but it's the truth. We have to have a lot higher pH in our soil than what we normally did in our forest situations. If you go out there and pull a pH in a hardwood forest or a pine timber forest that hadn't been touched, then you're going to run about 4.5 to 4. Tomatoes and other things will not grow with that. We have to adjust that pH up. We also have to give sunlight. We have to have those roots have to be able to breathe. They have to be able to grow rapidly and put these fruits on. So it's just not conducive to grow it in an environment like our naturally ecosystem was back in the day.
Yeah, you go out down there by the creek bed, you ain't gonna find any squash or any tomatoes growing.
Nope.
So they are the proponents of this are correct in that the forest system is self-sustaining, but the varieties we're trying to grow in our vegetable garden were bred to be grown in a garden situation, not in a forest.
Yeah, they've evolved over a period of hundreds of years. So these varieties that we have that are open populated or classified as heirlooms, people have worked with those over generations to use it as a food source. So these old heirloom varieties we have was maybe not the same variety we had 500-600 years ago. They have evolved somewhat to become what they are today in a cultivated situation where you can actually grow it for food and not growing out there wild.
Right. The argument from the Back to Eden proponents is that there's no bare soil in nature, which is true, but there's also not tomatoes, peppers, squash,
watermelons, cantaloupes,
right,
beets and onions. Yeah,
those are not in nature as well.
Right.
So we're manipulating a situation.
Yeah, and he's also tying this to the Bible, to a spiritual type thing, and, and that's fine. But your gardening technique has nothing to do with your spirituality. So when you tie those two together, it becomes a little bit complicated and cloudy to me. We want to do things that work, and we want to be good to the environment, and we want to grow good foods. What we're trying to do here. So
yeah, I'm trying to put food on the table, not feel good about something.
Right.
There's a difference there. I'm not trying to replicate.
And maybe we're a little tough and hard, but that's just the way we operate right there. I just can't get really emotional about me going out there planting tomatoes and stuff. It's just something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I'm about production. I just can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. But anyhow, go watch this Back to Eden guy. It's interesting to watch them. If you don't watch them, and you can do your own conclusion from it. But the conclusion we've come, if you try it in the South, you're gonna starve to death.
Right, and one of the other things is putting all those wood chips in your soil is going to tie up a little bit of nitrogen.
Do not ever use green wood chips in a garden situation. They will tie up your nitrogen, and it's a natural process that they have to decay. They're going to steal that nitrogen and tie it up. I don't even like to use dried wood chips. I think if you're going to use the mulch, you need to use something like wheat straw, pine straw, something like that breaks down a lot quicker. I am not a proponent of using any type of wood chips in the garden.
They make a mess. They're hard to contain.
And they take forever to break down.
Yeah, so and a lot of these Back to Eden videos, what they fail to mention is to get it like he's gotten it, those wood chips take years to break down. And so you're not just going to go start that tomorrow. It would take years and years to develop those layers that he's talking about. And lots of wood chips. I don't have a good source of wood chips. I do got a good source of chicken manure,
which works great.
Yes, right. That's right. So yeah, check those out. And one other interesting thing that I noticed with all the Back to Edeners, if that's a word, is that they just their garden design is just kind of a random assortment. You see them out there. There'll be a lettuce plant here, a squash plant here, a tomato plant here. It just doesn't seem very space efficient. Now, I understand they just cover this general aerial mulch and they just go up there and plant something where they feel like it. But I like to plant stuff in rows. I can just visualize it, see it better. I know what I got.
You can plan, you can work it, you can harvest it.
Rotate it.
You can be a lot more productive with it.
Yeah. So, plant them in rows, row by row.
Row by row.
All right. So, let us know what you think about Back to Eden. Have you tried it? Do you like it? Tell us what you think. If you think we're wrong, tell us why you think we're wrong.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to our question this week. And when we answer your question on the show, send us an email to cusserve@hosstools.com with your address, and we'll get your prize out to you. This week, our question is from Jeff Gambier. I hope that's right. And he wants to know about tillage radish. And he's saying, in heavy, unworked clay, what kind of row spacing would you suggest? So this is our tillage radish cover crop right here. And I think this particular variety, I think it's called Sod Buster or something like that.
Yep.
Well, these things grow deep in the soil. If you've got that heavy clay soil, they're going to get in there and bust it up. If it was me, and I was planting this with a cedar, a precision cedar, I would plant them rows about 6 inches apart. I've seen people say 7 to 14, but personally I would plant them pretty thick.
Yeah, I would too. I've planted them before. I've grown them several times, and they work really well. One of the great things I like about them, cover crops can be kind of hard to get rid of. I mean, they're notorious for, there's a lot of organic matter. They can be kind of hard to till in. But these radishes, when they get big, and you go in there and cut them up, they can decompose real quick. They go very deep into your soil, bust up that hard pan. But they decompose really quick, and they're easy to work back into your soil. Now, I have broadcasted them and raked them in and had real good success with that. So, I mean, you really can't go wrong planting these things.
Yeah, so what happens is when they grow them big, deep radish roots, those things scavenge all the nutrients from down deep that otherwise wouldn't be available for your plant, and they're stored in that root. Now, that root is mainly water, and that's why it decomposes so fast.
That's right.
So these things, unlike other cover crops where you might have to wait a little while, the decomposition time before you plant your crops, you can come in there, till these guys in, or incorporate them in, and in no time, plant your other crops. And then all those nutrients that these guys absorb when they're growing are right there really available
for you. It's kind of like a big sponge. It just pulls everything in and holds it for you.
That's right. So even if you don't have hard soils, these right here are going to do a great job for your nutrient.
Yeah, they're known to bust up the hard pan and hard clay soils, but we've had great success using them in sandy loam type soils.
Yeah, for nutrient acquisition, all that good stuff. All right, so that's going to do it for us this week. Like I said, next week is a highly probable chance we might be at the Sunbelt Expo and show you a little bit of that.
Yep, that'd be great. We can show you around and let you know what we got going on down there.
All right. We will see you guys next week. Have a good one.